Hey everybody, Miss Stidham here. I cannot believe we have made it to our final end of distance learning. I'm so proud of you guys. You've been working so hard for me. And this will be the last poem that we'll read together. And the name of it is Out, Out by Robert Frost. Robert Frost should definitely sound familiar to you at this point. So, what other poems have we read by Robert Frost? Well, we've read Nothing Gold Can Stay, which is Inside the Outsiders. We've read Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. In fact, most of you guys have recited that one by memory. We've read The Road Not Taken just last week, so you should be a professional on that one. And then this one is going to be Out, Out. So what do those three poems have in common? Well, they all rhyme. They all have beautiful descriptions of nature, and they all have a lesson that you're supposed to learn. So in Nothing Gold Can Stay, we learned that beautiful things don't last. In Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, the moral of the story is that you should stop and enjoy the beautiful things around you. In The Road Not Taken, it's about life's choices and the decisions that we make and how we should not take the road that everyone else is taking. We should take the road that's best for us. So those three poems have all of those things in common. Today's poem is also by Robert Frost, but it will break every single pattern that we know about him. Frost wrote today's poem Out, Out during World War I. He was very affected by all of the soldiers dying during the war. And obviously, if you're a soldier and it's wartime and you see your friends and your teammates fall or die in battle, there's really no time to have a funeral, to mourn, to grieve. You just have to keep going. That was really bothersome to Robert Frost. There's no time to mourn the lives lost. He said that during a war, you have to deal with death in a way that's matter of fact. No time to be emotional. So the theme of the poem we're reading today, Out, Out, is about the uncertainty of life. Robert Frost is known as someone that recites poems in public a lot. He even recited at a presidential inauguration. But this poem is one that he never once recited in public because he says this poem is too cruel. The title of the poem, Out, Out, is actually from a line out of the play Macbeth by William Shakespeare. Macbeth is a play that you might read in high school. The line in the play says, Out, out, brief candle, life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. So just like people can die at any minute, a flame of a candle can be blown out. So that's why he says, Out, out, brief candle. That's Shakespeare, and Robert Frost really liked that line of that play, and so he's made it the title of this poem. So again, we're referencing death. So a flame of a candle can blow out easily. People can die very easily, certainly during times of war. So here is the poem Out, Out by Robert Frost. The buzzsaw snarled and rattled in the yard, and made dust and dropped stove-length sticks of wood, sweet-scented stuff when the breeze drew across it. And from there those that lifted eyes could count 5 mountain ranges, one behind the other, under the sunset far into Vermont. And the saw snarled and rattled, as it ran light or had to bear a load. And nothing happened. Day was all but done. Call it a day, I wish they might have said, to please the boy, by giving him the half hour that a boy counts so much when saved from work. His sister stood beside him in her apron to tell them, Supper! At the word, the saw, as if to prove saws knew what supper meant, leaped out at the boy's hand, or seemed to leap. He must have given the hand. However it was, neither refused the meeting, but the hand. The boy's first outcry was a rueful laugh as he swung toward them, holding up the hand, half in appeal, but half as if to keep the life from spilling. Then the boy saw all. Since he was old enough to know, big boy during a man's work, though a child at heart, he saw all spoiled. Don't let him cut my hand off. The doctor, when he comes, don't let him, sister. So, but the hand was gone already. The doctor put him in the dark of ether. He lay and puffed his lips out with his breath, And then the watcher at his pulse took fright. No one believed. They listened at his heart. Little, less, nothing. And that ended it. No more to build on there. And they, since they were not the one dead, turned to their affairs. So, obviously, a pretty strange poem there. There's a little boy who is doing chores in the yard. He's cutting wood with a buzz saw, and there's an accident, and he cuts his hand off and he dies. But instead of crying and weeping and wailing and mourning and going into shock, the family just says, well, we better get back to work since we're not the ones that are dead. Obviously, that's not the way most families would handle that situation, but that is the way that soldiers have to handle death during a war, right? So let's go stanza by stanza and talk about figurative language and poetic elements. Obviously, first thing right off the bat, the buzz saw snarled and rattled in the yard has three examples of onomatopoeia. You have buzz, you have snarl, and you have a rattle. So that saw is making all kinds of noises. It also says sweet scented stuff when the breeze drew across it. Great alliteration. A saw can't really do these things. The saw can't snarl. The saw doesn't rattle. The saw isn't dropping the sticks of wood. So Robert Frost is personifying this saw, giving it human abilities, and so that's personification. And then it says the saw snarled and rattled again. So we would call that repetition. Whenever it says, call it a day, I wish they might have said, Robert Frost is foreshadowing that they should have called it a day early and maybe they could have avoided this tragic accident. So that would be foreshadowing that something is about to go wrong whenever he says, call it a day, I wish they had said. Then again, the saw leaped out and took the boy's hand. Saws can't leap and they can't take things. So that's another example of personification. I think it's really sad whenever it says the boy's first outcry was a rueful laugh. Obviously, we shouldn't laugh if we cut our hands off, but he was probably in shock. And then whenever he swings up holding his stump of a wrist, and it says to keep the life from spilling. Well, it's probably blood that's spilling out, but when Robert Frost calls it the life spilling, that's a metaphor. He's comparing losing blood to losing your life, which he obviously did in the end. Whenever he says so and then puts a period to stop reading and to take a big pause, he's kind of showing that there was nothing they could do. The doctor was there, the family was around him, but so that was it. There's nothing they could do. Just in case you didn't know, when they put him in the dark of ether is an anesthetic. So they tried to stop his pain. And then he lay and puffed his lips out, and puff would be another onomatopoeia. Lots of sounds in this poem. My favorite line of this poem is when they're listening at his pulse and they hear little, less, nothing. That's my favorite line. And then we already discussed families shouldn't just go back to work, but soldiers do. And so this is kind of Robert Frost's take on World War I and the way that the soldiers had to behave. This poem is actually based on a true story. So I'm going to read you a newspaper article from the Littleton Courier in a New Hampshire newspaper from March 31st, 1901. Sad tragedy at Bethlehem. Raymond Fitzgerald, a victim of fatal accident. Raymond Tracy Fitzgerald, one of the twin sons of Michael G. and Margaret Fitzgerald of Bethlehem, died at his home Thursday afternoon, March 24th, as the result of an accident by which one of his hands was badly hurt in a sawing machine. The young man was assisting in sawing up some wood in his own dooryard or yard with a sawing machine and accidentally hit the loose pulley, causing the saw to descend upon his hand, cutting and lacerating it badly. Raymond was taken into the house and a physician was immediately summoned, but he died very suddenly from the effects of the shock, which produced heart failure. So if you need to hit pause on the video here in just a second, that's fine. or if you just want to go into Google Classroom and open these slides up for yourselves, what I want you to do is to compare this newspaper article, which is true, a true nonfiction account, to the poem that Robert Frost wrote. And I want you to find 3 things that they have in common and 3 ways that they're different. So 3 similarities and 3 differences, or 3 comparisons and 3 contrasts. And in the Google form with the questions, there will be a place where you can enter both of those columns. So you'll put in 3 things they have in common and 3 things that they have different. And they can be simple. I mean, a boy cut his hand off. A saw accident happened in both. So don't overthink it. Just compare this newspaper article to the poem. Helpful hints, the states. You might pay attention to the states that they say that they're in. You might pay attention to which one has more details and facts versus which one is more fluffy and has more figurative language. And those things should help you come up with differences and similarities. You guys are doing great. I'm so proud of you. I can't believe this is our last lesson together. But keep up the good work. Don't give up. And I will see you soon.